All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me, please? If you can hear me, please make a reaction. If you can hear me, please make a reaction. More reaction, please. Okay, perfect. All right. So, a quick one. We'll just make some introduction before our speaker. She's setting up our system before she joins us. Okay, I think to make it more so that it's not look as if I'm talking from you're not seeing who you're talking. Okay, so for the Cohort 2 students, I believe we already know about the Variety Friday. Cohort 1 students. For the Cohort 2 students, I'll just give you a brief rundown of the Variety Friday. I did a poll. Let me see the result of the poll. So far, which cohort? I think I'm seeing more of Cohort 1 student, Cohort 2 students here. But actually, today's meeting is actually more for the Cohort 1, if they know. But the Cohort 2, for the Cohort 2, it will be like a stepping stone for you and give you quick visibility. The topic for today, open source, right? So our Variety Friday is actually a time set aside to actually teach our participants on soft skills. Now we have the technical skills and we have the soft skills. Like what you actually sign up for, your different tracks like cybersecurity, data science, product management, the product design, front end and back end development, and all. They are all technical skills, right? But I keep saying this during our Variety Fridays that the technical skills is one thing that will get you in the job, but the soft skill is one of the things that will keep you in the job, right? Now, it's just like when they say skills will get you the job, or character will actually keep you in that job. But this for here now, we are talking about the soft skill will be what will keep you on the job. Because there are some times that I'll just give you a small. We are waiting for our speaker. It's not time yet. She's going to join us shortly. Let me see. Okay, I think our speaker is here already. Victory, can you hear me? All right, perfect. She's on. Okay. So let me just finish up what I'm saying before I call on our speaker. So one thing is we use this platform to actually teach people on different soft skills to actually equip you for the job market. It's not enough to have a technical skill. I will always tell people that works with me that the technical skill can actually get you the job, but it's the soft skill that will keep you at the job. Why? The technical skill can easily be replaced. No matter how skillful you are, there is someone that can still do your job. No matter how skillful you are, there is someone that can actually do that job, right? But there is this soft skills that you will have as a person individually. There is this soft skill that will, even when you are not very good with the technical skill, we just don't know why we can't let you go. It's very important. It's not because of anything. It's just because of that thing inside of you, that innate, the soft skills are the innate part of every human being, that it's irresistible, right? So the technical, it's hard to replace a soft skill. Trust me, in every job place, at least I have a first-hand experience as a founder of a company and all of that. So it's easy to change someone with technical skill, but it's very difficult to change someone with good soft skill. Because if they have good managerial skill, good communication skill, good presentation skill, good different kind of soft analytical skill, right? Creativity and all of that, you find it that you just cannot, you don't know why you just don't want, no matter how, you just find a way to let this person learn the technical skill, because this part of this person it's as good as, like, it's something that that it's not easily, you can't get easily from anybody. But the technical skill, no matter the kind of software you can build, as long as we're in the community, we will see someone that can do the same thing. So that's why we brought out this Variety Friday. to actually empower our students in a way where they can fit into every job market. So sometimes some persons were cheated because they are not joining the Variety Friday, but we have announced it over and over again that the Variety Friday is as good as your technical skill. Don't be a very good technically and you are not good with soft skill. It will hinder you in the market, in the job market, or in the workspace. So please, I'm encouraging everybody, every one of us, that we take this Variety Friday serious. Today we are going to be talking about open source. We have actually had a lot of topics since inception. We've had several speakers coming to speak. Myself, I've also done justice with some problem-solving skill and what is needed in the job place and agile, and how to work in an agile team as well. So today is a very peculiar topic in the industry that that is not so much talked about, and is not so much there's no, even though they are doing justice to it, like the likes of Victory and so many other persons, but it's not as the way we talk about other parts of the industry. So open source is one thing that I think every tech person needs to know. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not your speaker for that. I think we have the best person that can handle the open source. So I'll bring on Victory. Victory has make a mark on the open source space. She's leading communities and all of that, and she has been a wonderful community manager in terms of the open source community, right? So I will bring her on the stage so she can take us through this journey of open source. Victory, you're welcome.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loudly.
All right, thank you. First, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. Sorry, I'm trying to put on my camera. Okay. Hi, so give me a second. First of all, I want to say thank you for this opportunity, and thank you people who have made it here to attend the session today. Thank you for making it. My name is Victory Brown, and I'm a user experience designer. And I started. Sorry, if you wonder why, so how many hours or minutes do I have? So that I can tell myself.
You have 30 minutes to. You have 30
Okay.
minutes. You can take your time. 30 minutes. Just teach our students about open source. Yeah.
All right. So I can see the chat before I start sharing my screen. I just want to know how many of us here have heard about open source before now. Like if you've heard about open source, I don't know if there's a reaction, but if you can react, you can drop a reaction. If you can use the chat, please use the chat. If you've heard about, yeah, I can see people's hands up. Okay. 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 All right. So I'm guessing to some people it's not a new topic, and to some people this is the first time that they are hearing about open source. So if you are here and you are a designer, first off, if you're a designer, please just like give me a reaction as well. Okay. Okay. Are there developers? Developers, you can give another reaction, like just. Okay. Okay. So I see that we have a mixed audience here. So I'll try to be as general as possible. I'll talk about open source, and then I'll leave room for questions, and I'll use the questions to tell you more about open source. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I contribute to open source. Because I'm a designer, I contribute to open source as a designer. I lead design communities in open source. I work full-time as a design researcher at Superbloom. I organize design events, so I'm more design-centered, but in the open source space. And I'm going to tell you how I've been able to navigate this space as a designer, as a developer, as a community manager, and as a project manager, sharing a bit of my story. So when I first started open source, before I start sharing my screen, I just want to give you like a background of my journey. When I first started tech, I started writing code. it was during the pandemic and I was writing code. I think I wrote a few HTML and CSS, and then I got to JavaScript. And because I did not have a mentor, it was very difficult for me to navigate the JavaScript ecosystem, and things were just very difficult and confusing for me. So I stopped coding. But in a period of time when I was writing code, I was contributing to open source by simply like fixing little minute bugs in open source. Now, open source. What is, okay, so I'll share my screen. Okay. Sorry, this is a new platform that I'm, okay. Okay. I hope I'm sharing the right thing. So I'm going to share my screen now. If you can see my screen, please drop a reaction. I cannot see my screen. Okay, I can only see AB's face. All right. So open source, you can hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm an open source advocate, I contribute to open source. And you're just like, what exactly is this open source? You're not lost. I've been here before. And it was the same confusion, but open source is basically creating free software for people to use. Like if you decide that you want to be right and you think this thing is going to be useful to the public, if you make the source code, documentation, and the development of that particular software free, open in the sense that anybody can use these APIs, anybody can, if you're a developer, you know what APIs are. So if you're a designer, anybody can use your link, anybody can use your documentation. If you're a technical writer, anybody can use it to start off their own project, or anybody can use it in the point that they can reference it in schoolwork, or they can just copy that project and also build off on that project. Is open source. So I see that this full topic is, so again, I'm a user experience designer. I'm contributing to a lot of open source community. We call open source design group, SustainOSS podcast. I do Web3, but currently I work in Superbloom as a design researcher, and with the WHO as an open source community manager. So I'm just going to be dabbling in a lot of things. This particular slide is primarily for design, but again, I'm going to explain it in general view. So the way I see design and the way I see the open source space is basically what works. Design is how things work. Gone are those days where we say design is aesthetics, design is making things look pleasing, design is how people approach a product. Like if something does not look good, for some people, if something does not look good, they don't even go for that to look at it, right? So most designers focus on visuals, focus on aesthetics more than the functionality of how things work. Now, as a human person or as a human being, when you begin to look at design as how things work, wherever you are placed, in any situation, any community, and any project that you are placed, there is an interaction that happens between you and that person. It is you basically thinking, what is not functional right now and how can I design it to be functional? And design in this form does not mean how can I open Figma, how can I do all of those things. It's basically what ideas can I generate as a designer, as a creative, what ideas can I generate, what can I do to better the experience of this particular project that I am in and the people who are contributing to this project. So this can be from designing programs to conducting tests with products as a developer. It can be initiating or advocating for users to come and test this product that you are building. It can also be accepting and opening the communities, because one of the things that makes open source projects sustainable is that people contribute to those particular projects. So as a developer, when you think of how things work in any open source community that you are in, you're thinking, is this code written in a way that makes it easy and functional and usable for people who want to adopt this code database or this API, how does it work for them? How can I write this code so that someone who is not a developer can see it and probably know what to do with it? As a designer, it means how can I design the experience of where I am currently and make it livable, make it functional, make it usable, make it workable for people who interact with it. So this can go from designing interfaces, like if the project has a website and there are things that you need to make the website more accessible, it goes into designing that website. It also goes into designing programs, designing events, designing a roadmap for that particular project. So open source has a plethora of opportunities for you, depending on how you approach the ecosystem, depending on what you want to get for the ecosystem. I know a lot of people think open source is free work, but honestly, I know a lot of people who are making money from open source, and I know a lot of people whose, I for one, my career was built off contributing and doing that free work that you think people are doing. And it also extends to contributing to projects outside of the open source ecosystem. So this can be, for instance, you are in these projects, CareerEX, right? And you volunteer to make things happen in this community. Now, CareerEX is not registered, or I don't know, does not have a license to be open source, but that volunteering, that free nature of creating things that other people can use for free is open source to anybody, right? So that's basically what the ecosystem looks like. It is open and there is no limitation to what you can do. You can be a project manager and you get into open source and you're a community manager. The only thing I would advise is find a way to make that transition smooth and find a way to create an intersection. And as I continue to talk about it, I'll talk about how like I have been able to intersect all of the different things that I do in open source and bring them together into one space. So as I said earlier, what is open source? Open source, an open source project is typically like a collaborative effort where people improve upon source code, they share changes within the community so that programmers can improve it further. So basically you are building and you are not hiding your code. Your code is open for people. Maybe I see your, are you raising your hand? Somebody raising their hand. Okay. So it's one of those things where you can just decide, I have an idea. How can this profit the general public? How can I encourage other people to join me? How can I share this idea and encourage anybody to join me to build it? You as an attendee on this program, you can have an idea and then you can begin your own open source project. All you need to do is do your research, collect the right licenses that endorse your project as an open source project, right? So what are some common mishaps or misconceptions about open source? Like what are those things that you've heard about open source that are not true? So I'm going to be debunking some of those open source beliefs. I know that when I first started contributing to open source, they say open source is developer centered, it's purely code. And yes, it might look like it because when you open GitHub, there are lots of things, we will get to that soon. There are a lot of things that happen with GitHub that is unfamiliar to people who do not write code. So you have crazy terms like repository, pull request, and you are just hit with all of those things. What are those things and how does that affect your open source journey, right? So open source is not limited to code. Yes, there are code projects, but open source is not limited to code. The reason why you keep seeing code things is because you look for open source only on GitHub. And I'm here to tell you that open source does not exist only on GitHub. There are a lot of open source projects that use Discourse. There are a lot of open source projects that use GitLab. There are a lot of open source projects that use other developers' tools that are also open source. There are design projects, there are climate-related projects, there are healthcare projects. All you need to do is do your research and you can find different ways to contribute to this project. Open source is open to all skill sets. So whether you think you're a graphic designer, I know when we first started contributing to open source, my friends and I, we had graphics designers on the team, and what they were doing was designing logos, designing identities, designing conference flyers, designing swags for open source projects. And for some of them, they got stipends, some of them, they got publicity, and those projects acknowledge their contribution, which is one of the reasons why we contribute to open source. Open source acknowledges those contributions. Your project that you contribute to acknowledges those things. And over time, you become not just contributor to that project, but become a community member. People begin to ask you for your ideas. Your ideas are welcome to improve the existence and the sustainability of the project that you contribute to. contributing to open source is a waste of time. And no, I want to say that contributing to open source is not, capital letter NOT, a waste of time. I have been in the tech space for 4 years, and I would say in that 4 years, I have applied to different roles, and of all the jobs that I've gotten, there were roles that I did not apply for. There were roles where I was recommended and I was referred. Why? Because of the footprint that has been left in the open source ecosystem. So as you contribute and as you talk about your contribution, people see those things, right? And you don't know who is rooting for you. You don't know who's watching you and where those things might come in handy. Now, in the company that I currently work as a designer, I'm open to different tools. I see different technologies that I would not have access to if I remained in a little shell in my hometown where I am, right? But open source extends your network and your connection to different things and different spheres of life and different people. There's a whole diversity of people that you would meet, and that can help to build your network and your connection. So don't look at open source as a waste of time. There are so many opportunities, paid and unpaid opportunities for mentorship. Open source is a large ecosystem that is ready to give back to community as long as community is willing to accept open source. The last one is contributing to open source is free work. This is not 100% true. Contributing to open source is not free work. People get paid for contributing to open source. Like I said, there are paid opportunities like Outreachy, Google Summer of Code, Google Summer of Doc. There's also the Linux Foundation mentorship, and more mentorship opportunities keep coming up. There are also grant opportunities. If you have an open source project idea, there are grants and funding that is available from the OTF, from the Sovereign Tech Fund, and the Open Technology Fund. They are ready to Code for Science as well as another fund that they are ready to fund your ideas as long as they meet the criteria for being an open source project. So you can get money from contributing to open source, but let money not be your driving force. Let's not be, I know it's wrong to say, but it should not be the only reason why you contribute to open source, because you might be focused on money and you might miss out on building connections that would sustain you in the long run. So now I'm saying all of these things, and one thing that I keep getting back is, oh, I've heard about open source, but I cannot find a community to contribute to. Finding a community to contribute to is as easy as finding a location on your Google map. All you need to do is to identify why you are looking for this community. So I've written some key points to consider when searching for an open source community. One of those things is, what am I interested in? What are your interests? Are you interested in Web3? No matter how big the Web3 space is, there are some Web3 projects that are open source. As big as the Ethereum Foundation is an open source project. The Ethereum Foundation has an open source project and has people contributing to the community. Ethereum Foundation also gives grants to folks who want to build open source projects on their API or on their platform, what they've built on their blockchain rather. So those are opportunities that are available. If you're in healthcare or you think that you are more interested in healthcare projects, there are a lot of healthcare projects that are open source, and a lot of them still keep springing up because there's funding available for things to be done. I know that there are climate-related projects. There are projects that are just existing. My first project contributing to open source was a healthcare project called Herald that is built by the Linux Foundation. It's a project that it was formed during the COVID-19, and it was to help people identify COVID-19 situations around them and people who had contracted the disease, right? So I'm not a healthcare person, but having done that background and having done that project, even for free, I think I did that project for like 3 months. Having done that project for 3 months, I was able to include it in my portfolio. And currently I work with WHO, and that is one of the projects that landed me in that particular role because I had a healthcare related contribution on open source. So do you see how the intersection comes? You might never know what projects you contribute to that will be relevant in future and how it will come about. So do not take any contribution for jokes. Do not take it as nothing. Take those contributions serious. Open source contributions can be added and referred on your GitHub README and in your CV. When I started applying for jobs, I did not have any first-hand experience from the office. All of my experiences came from contributing remotely as an open source contributor. I had the Hera project, I had the Sustain project, and I had the open source design project. And all of those things were things that I did as a novice. I had no experience, but I was learning as I continued to work on that project because I saw a future in contributing to open source. Another thing is do research in that area. So now that you have identified your interest, do your research. What skill sets is needed in healthcare? What skill sets do I have? I know when I came in, I heard Amy talking about like your soft skills and your hard skills. Your hard skills can land you the job, but your soft skills is what will sustain you there. Like having people, a people skill, talking with your colleagues, just being able to communicate work is something that you learn while contributing to open source, because you are contributing to a whole new ecosystem. People are coming from different spheres, different demographic, different time zone. So you might need to adjust yourself. You might need to be able to send in work earlier. If you say you are doing something and you are assigned to do it, if you will not be able to do it, you need to communicate that you will not be able to do it. So research on what exactly do I need to fit into this particular sphere. And also another thing you can do is research on the existing communities that are active. How you can do that is to go to Google. If you go to Google, you can write open source healthcare projects, and then you can see a bunch of open source projects that are related to healthcare. You can put list of open source projects in climate, and you will see a bunch of them. What you can do is, if you see a list of them, you can click on those projects, read about them, check their websites, do intensive research. One thing about, sorry to say this, I know that it might sound very millennial, but one thing about this generation is I noticed that we do not like to find things for ourselves. We tend to shift towards being spoon-fed. You want things to be handed to you freely. And I can give something to you and you might not cherish it as much as when you find that thing for yourself, right? I've been in positions where I said, okay, someone I know leads this community, join this community, and people join and they don't find that community welcoming to them until they find their own community. But some people find that community and they join it and they are growing and they are healthy and they are happy, right? So this could go from different ways. So my point is, when you find this community, do extensive research. Check their website. All of these open source communities have websites, and they don't just have websites. They have links to learn about their documentation and the project software. They have links to join their Slack channel. They have links to their Twitter, and they have links to their GitHub. If you go to GitHub, you can check how often and how active that GitHub is. Some projects are not active on GitHub because they don't have anything they are building, but they have events and communication that goes on in their Slack channel. Once you join the Slack channel, introduce yourself. Do not just join the Slack channel. Nobody knows that you are there. Yes, Slack says this person joined Slack, but nobody knows if it's a spam account or it's a non-existing account. So when you join a Slack channel, find their general channel and then introduce yourself. Say, hi, my name is Victory. I'm a UX designer. I have 2 years experience in interaction design. I'm looking for a community that I would like to contribute to, and I found this community. I am good in user research, user interview. Where can I go to learn more about this community? It shows enthusiasm. It shows that you are interested in what is going on in that community, right? So that's how you find yourself in the open source space. This is how you begin to navigate, because a whole lot of things can come at you at the same time, but it is how you navigate this community that will sustain you, right? So another thing is, when you find the community that matches your interest, ask questions about contributing to that community. I've already gone ahead to even say introduce yourself, ask them questions. I was reading documentation. Find someone who, most of these communities have community managers that are always posting on the channel. You will see them, they'll say, oh, look out for our meeting this week, look out for this, look out for that. You can DM those people. Open source is a very free space. You don't have to be worried about, yes, there are people who have time constraints and might not be able to reply you immediately. But one of the things that you have to do is you have to show that you are interested. Reach out to 1, 2, 3 people. Ask them, how can you contribute to the community? What is currently going on? If they have community meetings, join the community meetings, right? Join the community meetings, take notes, listen, ask questions. You might not be able to ask questions from the get-go, because I know I stayed in open source communities for like a year before I started like talking and contributing, but I was attending those community calls. I was quiet. I would listen. I would take notes personally. If I needed something to say, if I could not say during the call, I would message them in Slack and I'll say, oh, I thought when we're having the call, I had this idea. What do you think? Sometimes it's a good idea. Sometimes an idea that they've thought about and they've thought about the consequences of it, and it has been archived. So you would not know how relevant your ideas are to building that community until you step out of your comfort zone and then you say something. Now, this thing I'm saying is not just about the open source space. It also involves your day-to-day life as you are in this community engaging. Some people who are in this community with you over the next 6 months, they might be getting like full-time jobs, and others might be struggling to get internships. Some others might not even be getting offers. Now, it depends on how you take this journey. Is personal. It depends on how you take that journey, how you want to be seen, how you want to be heard, what goals you have set for yourself, and how you plan to hit each of those milestones, right? And then the most important thing is get a mentor. The mentor doesn't necessarily have to be from that open source community, but you can get a mentor around you. You can get a mentor around you. Look for people who are tweeting about open source. Look for people who are talking about open source on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Reach out to them. A lot of them might have the time. Some of them might not have the time, but they know someone that has the time. But you never know if you don't reach out. I see a lot of people getting offended when they get aired on social media by supposed higher ups, right? Don't go for the highest people, right? Don't go for the people who you see everywhere. Go for people who are just making little contributions so that you can grow together. People who are just asking questions because they are lost and they want to learn, and then you can grow together. Now, this is basically for people who are designers, but I think it's also a general term for newcomers, new beginners in open source. Is a lot of them don't know that they can contribute to open source. The lack of awareness that, yeah, you can contribute to open source. Your skill is necessary to contribute to open source. A lot of people don't know that. So that's a challenge for contributing to open source. Now, today, for most people who have not heard it before, you have now heard it. So now you are no longer facing the challenge of, oh, I didn't know anything about open source. You are now faced with the challenge of, what can I contribute? Where can I contribute? What does this mean? And how can I start, right? So that's basically what, sorry. So that's one of the problems of contributing to open source, like lack of awareness. The next thing is finding issues. These finding issues can go for every skill set. Let's say you find a project that you want to contribute to. You really like this project. You like the idea of the project. You were talking to the mentors, but there is no active issue. And when I say issue is one of, I'll get to that. Issue is one of the things that you see on GitHub. So there's no active issue. There's no issue that is labeled for designer, or you're a developer, right? And that particular project, you know React, or you know Node.js, but that particular project uses R or C++ or one of those other technical code language that you don't know. So you cannot contribute to that project because it's not in your skill set, right? So finding issues that fit into your skill set can be a challenge. Another thing is the use of technical terms. If you are not used to a project, the kind of vocabulary that they use in that project can sway you off, and even just the vocabulary that is available on GitHub, because GitHub is what some of these open source projects use. So you can get lost from contributing because of these technical terms. So you hear things like pull request and you're like, what does a pull request mean? What does issues mean? All of those things are challenges that some people don't know. As a writer, or as a content writer, as a UX writer, I have no business using GitHub, but some projects use GitHub to contribute and to communicate and to discuss because they have GitHub discussions. So how can I navigate this new interface with all of these technical jargons that I don't know? Another thing is using developer tools. If you are not a developer, it will be very difficult for you to use certain developer tools that most open source projects use. For some of these open source projects, as a contributor, if you want to contribute as a user or as a tester, you might need to download these projects, right? You might need to download them. And let's say, for instance, you cannot download them because of certain challenges, right? You cannot download it because of your bandwidth or your laptop capacity. It becomes a big challenge to contribute to open source. And the final one is like no integration of design tools. I would say no integration of design tools, no integration of content tools. You would need, if you write in Google Doc, you might need to copy the link and paste as a comment in an issue so that people can link to them. I don't know if there has been an upgrade on that and if things can be embedded, but from the last contributions that I've made to open source, it was very difficult because you would need to go to Figma, you will copy the link and send, you need them to link before they make a pull request and all of that. Meanwhile, a developer can just write the code on VS Code, push to Git, and then things begin to check how many issues are past mark, how many is resolved, how many is unresolved, and somebody comes and makes a pull request. Simple. and that, but it doesn't happen for everyone. So these are the problems that we face contributing to open source. So I'll just introduce you to some open source terms that you might come across as a beginner. So GitHub is a company that offers a cloud-based repository hosting service like Git. So it uses Git. Git is a cloud distributed version system that if you make changes, it gets stored in Git. You can track all of those things. So anything that you do is being stored in a cloud space, and you can access all of those things from GitHub. So GitHub is a platform that hosts this thing and that handles it, right? So it makes it easy for you to collaborate because it doesn't just have that cloud system. It also has things like chat, it has issues. So if you're opening an issue and you're going to fix that issue, all of those changes that you are making, like I said, remember I said something about push and like you're pulling pull request and all of that, or you're picking something, you're pushing something to GitHub from your VS Code, or you're making a pull request to add something to an existing repository. You do all of these things on GitHub. Another thing that you hear is pull requests. Pull requests are usually made to tell others that you have pushed something to GitHub, right? So you make a pull request if there's an issue that you corrected. Let's say, for instance, the sentence pull request lets you tell others, and you want to say lets you want to add an S. If you make a copy of this, making a copy of this particular pull request page I'm showing here is what we refer to as forking that repository. So you fork a repository where that particular issue or particular change that you want to make is. Forking it means making a copy of it under your name. So now you are not making a change, because a lot of times this thing happens. You make a change on the main branch and you change something and you spoil something for people who are using it worldwide, right? So instead of you to cause a change directly to the main branch and cause chaos, because it might happen, it's not because you are careless, it's just because something happened, right? So you would rather make that change in your own repository under a branch, and that branch allows you to change whatever you need to change without affecting the main repository and the main code base. And then the people who now review are sometimes called maintainers. The maintainers review that change that you have made, which is the pull request, right? So they review that change and then they accept it, and it is being added to the main branch. So like I've used that to explain pull request and fork. The next thing is cloning. Git clone is a command used to create a copy of a specific repository or branch. Most people use fork. Cloning means you are making a clone of the entire repository, right? The entire branch, I think so, of all of those things. Repositories are kind of storage systems, right? Repositories hold code, they hold issues, they hold identities, they hold assets, they hold readmes. Repositories tell you about that particular project. So a project org, for instance, WHO has an organization account on GitHub. They have different repositories for the different projects that they own. So for instance, they have a repository called Epiparameters. Epiparameters is a repository that hosts all of the code system for issues under epidemiology and pandemic. So things about Ebola, things about COVID-19 are hosted in the Epiparameters repository. So you can find the code, you can find the assets, you can find files, you can find comments on that particular repository. If you go to the data preparedness repository, you will not find things about epiparameters in data preparedness. And in epiparameters repository, you will not find things about data preparedness. So that's basically what repositories do. Why should you contribute to open source? I'll say contribute to open source to gain experience. My years of experience have all come from contributing to open source projects. I don't have a project in my timeline that is not open source project, right? And as a designer, as a community manager, I use those experiences to build my portfolio. All of those things that I did, I found a way to communicate them visually and put them in the portfolio. And that portfolio is what I use to apply to certain jobs. Learn something new. Contribute to open source opens your mind to a whole lot of possibilities. Trust me, the things that I've learned from contributing for free, I know that if I went to a university, I would pay a huge sum of money to gain all of these experiences. There are a whole lot of resources that are being shared for free, a lot of people who are happy to educate and mentor. And there are also a lot of mentorship programs on how to contribute to open source. There's the All In for Africa project, which teaches you about GitHub. So if you're looking to learn GitHub, that's a good place to start. as a designer, as a community manager, as anything, All In for Africa is a project that you can explore. There's also the Linux mentorship class for community management, for project management, for technical writers. Check out the Linux Foundation website and you will find all of these things. It improves any skill that you have. Any skill. Practice makes perfect, right? So instead of working on dummy projects that are not existing, why don't you find an open source project and revamp? Why don't you find an open source project and contribute your idea? You are building that project and you are also building yourself. There's a whole lot of self-development that goes on. And trust me, on the great network and collaboration that you build, you would meet people who are happy to help you, who are happy to meet you for the first time, and you just have explosive connections. And the thing about it is, you don't just say hi. It's a connection that you build over time from your consistency, from just being present. From just being present in these spaces. You can get a paid gig. You can get a full-time job as well from contributing to open source. Most of these open source projects, like I said, get funded. And as someone who contributes over time, they might look at you as an invaluable asset to that project, and you might get an offering to be a part of that project full-time. I know my friends and I all contribute to open source, and all of my friends and I work in open source organizations, and we are being paid. And even while working in those organizations, this is about working in open source orgs is you are not just contributing to your project, you are getting paid for working there. And you also have access to contribute to other projects. They would allow you to go to other meetings because it makes sense to keep that network. And your collaboration and your network becomes another person's network and collaboration. And it also gives you remote work experience. I know a lot of people don't like to go to the office, but how are we going to know that you can work remotely if you don't have remote work experience? I know I've worked with people from different time zones. There were times when I had to have meetings by 1 a.m., when I had to facilitate calls by 1 a.m., and all of those things have happened. And I learned all of that from contributing to open source. So this is for design. It's just basically how to contribute to open source as a designer. You can design a style guide. So this is for my designers. You can design a style guide for a project, because most open source projects they just have developers building and building and building, and they don't look at aesthetics. Now there are two ways. When I said don't look at aesthetics, look at functionality. Now some people look at only functionality and they don't look at aesthetics, and both of them have to be a balance. There has to be a balance between them both. So you have to think of how can I contribute to this project and make our project more visually appealing. It could be like our website, or it could be just increasing our social media presence. So this is where like brand designers, communication designers come in. Interaction designers help to implement new flows on the website, help to design new structure for collaboration, for communication, make new documentation. All of those things are very exciting ways to explore as a novice, right? In a new space, you have the capacity to do anything that you want. So don't get boxed by, oh, I'm just a junior designer, or oh no, I only know graphics. You can do anything. You can even translate open source documentation to your language because you want to introduce, let's say for instance, you're from Ogoni. You can translate open source documentation to Ogoni. Yes, you might think, oh, Ogoni is not a general language, but yes, if 10 people in your community can read that documentation and begin to contribute to open source, you have done more than a lot of people. So think of it that way. That's basically what it looks like. So yeah, for people who are interested in, I think I could use this to show you. So these are repositories. This is open source design GitHub channel. These are the people that contribute to open source design. You can click on the profile, you can see their name, you can see their account. Where you see open source design.github.io is a repository that is pinned on our platform. These are repositories. They hold code base, they hold different things inside of those repositories. Here you can see a list of all the repositories that we have. These repositories represent the different projects that have come up from open source design, different platforms. Like here is our jobs. Here's where we post open source design jobs. You can check out the website. Honestly, there are still some jobs that are open. Some of them are paid, some of them have gratis, some of them have stipends accompanied with them, and you can just go off while contributing to these projects, right? So this is the exciting thing about contributing to open source as a designer, or as a novice, as a developer, and as a technical writer. So yeah, thank you. If you have any question. you can ask me.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Can you hear me, please? Victor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. That was awesome. I believe these are very insightful teaching you have exposed us to, right? Yeah, I believe so many persons by now should be thinking on how to jump in on the quick open source project to start being on the map, right? So the truth is that just like she said, open source, why we are introducing our students to open source and why we are introducing every one of you to open source is the fact that we want you to go far and fast, right? We want you to go far and fast because we know that open source is one way to put you out there very fast. Is one way to, and while you are still learning, you can still be contributing to something, good project and big project out there. So it's a good one to actually expose you to. So if you have a question, like she said, you can ask your questions. Please, Victory, can you check on the Q&A? I can bring anyone on the stage if you want to ask a question. In that question.
Yeah, I can't see any question, but I can see people saying, I can't hear you, I can't see your screen. I don't know if that was for me because I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were saying, but then I was like, it was clear from my end, so I don't want to interrupt you anyways because I didn't get any crack from my own end. So yeah, but if you scroll down to the last, you start seeing some questions that are coming. Someone is saying, judging from the definition of open source, it is established that open source is a free work, creating free software for people to use. In debunking, some believe you said open source actually pays. Please explain some more. Thanks.
Okay, so if you also listened, I think, sorry, I'm turning my camera, I was drinking water. If you also listened while I was speaking, I said that open source actually pays, and it pays in so many ways. One, you can have an idea, you can have an open source idea or a project that you want to make it open source. You can apply for funding. We have a lot of funders. We have Open Tech Fund, we have Sovereign Tech Fund, we have the Ford Foundation. Excuse me, we have Code for Science, a lot of these. We have DIITF, Digital Infrastructure and Insights Fund. They give money, they give huge sum of money for people to build open source projects. So that's how most people get funded to do open source work. They get paid to do open source work. Another way is open source has also created several opportunities, paid opportunities where they pay people. We have Outreachy, for instance. Outreachy is a 3-month internship where if you get accepted, you get paid $7,000 to contribute to an open source project for 3 months. Now you get paid, you get to contribute to a project. You get to contribute to a project, and you also get mentored while contributing to that project. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for you. There are also other things about like contributing to open source projects. You can be contributing to an open source project and someone reaches out because they see your work and then they ask you to do a contract. That was how I was able to feed for like a year. I got back-to-back contracts contributing to open source from just referrals and referrals and referrals, and all those things contributed to my experience and eventually landed me the job that I currently do now, which is being paid for. Sometimes you can also contribute to so one thing I did not want to talk about, because we are still in the basic part of open source, is about getting open source licenses. So there are 2 types of licenses. There's like the proprietary license and then the open source license. Some open source projects run 2 types of licensing, where they have like the proprietary one and then the free open source license, where they can do free work. They have a free part of their software, and then they have a paid part where they sell that part of their software to companies to use. Now, if you contribute to a project like that, over time you can get employed to work on that particular project, and I know people who do that. So that's one of the to things. Now, how to get a mentor and how to get started. Now, you can get a mentor in so many ways. You can reach out to people on the internet who are already doing open source work. Like I said, if you type open source on Twitter, or just make a tweet asking for, oh, who are the folks who do open source work, you might not even hear my name, because there are now a whole lot of people who are doing open source that some of us have decided to withdraw, because there are people who are now beginning to talk about open source. So you can find people who are interested in coaching, in mentoring. You can even see people who are deciding that, oh, I don't want to mentor you, but we are both novices, so let's grow together. Here are the resources that I've been able to acquire. What resources have you acquired? What do you need? And you can just grow together. I and my friends, that's how all of us did. We're five, and trust me, the five of us are in open source. The five of us have been in open source for 4 years. The five of us continue to contribute to open source projects, right? So that's how I started. I had a mentor that I found in the open source design community. And all of these things, you can get mentors indirectly, right? You can just see someone, you don't need to reach out, you don't need to ask for their phone number. You can just see them do work, copy their work, and just take on from there. So that's how you can get mentors. And I would advise that the best type of mentors are the ones who you see are communicating. Don't go and message somebody that you just look at their profile and you think, oh, this person looks good, so I think they'll be good to mentor me. Look for those people who are actually working, who drop messages in the channel, because you might get aired, right? If you see someone who's actively talking, it means that the person is aware, the person knows that they are a part of this community and will be willing to help in any way. Are there any community you can recommend for business dev managers? Business dev managers, I want to think that you are talking about like developer relations or community managers. So I would just answer for both. So if I'm not clear on that, what business dev managers are, please let me know. So for developer relations, there are a whole lot of ways that you can start developer relations. Most of the developer advocates that I know, or people who do DevRel, are people who started as developers, like they were writing code, and then they began to do a lot of management roles. Like they did not just write code, they started managing other junior developers, they started talking about the product, they started creating videos, writing articles, started doing advocacy work. And that advocacy work is what leads into like community management and dev relations, because it basically means developer relations is just a role that helps a developer to bridge development, community, stakeholders, and business. So that's like a whole role, and those are the skills that are important to build a particular role. And you can get that by contributing to open source as a community manager. How can you get started as a community manager? Is, for instance, you join a community, right? You might see, like I said, you see that person, that one person that is always saying, oh, we have a call today, join the call today. Text that person, tell them, hey, I am this and that. I have community management experience. I want to start like my community management journey. How can I help you to do this work in this community? Be bold. This is not the time to be shy. You can't make money as a shy person. Honestly, you can't grow as a shy person. It used to be happening, it's happened before, but now you have to step out of your box. People have to know what you're doing. You need to talk about it. I know some people say, well, I'm an introvert, I'm this, I'm that, and that. You can be the best developer in the world, but if nobody has seen your code, all you have is your word against theirs, right? If nobody has seen you talk about it, you will even come to the mind of people, right? So you have to step out of your comfort zone if you are in a space like this, right? Shake out of your cocoon and blossom like a butterfly or something. How do they say that? So yeah, basically that's someone says, I've tried to contribute to open source project, but my proposal was rejected. I don't think you need a proposal to contribute to open source projects. So I'm curious what kind of project you are contributing to. If you mean internships, yes, that is accepted, because the competition for internships is wild. There are a whole lot of people that contribute, apply to be on Google Docs, Google Summer of Code, Google Summer of Docs for a long time, but they don't get accepted now, right? But it doesn't mean you stop there. I know people who have contributed to Outreachy a couple of times, and then they got in on the second trial, the third trial. Some people got in on the fourth, fifth trial. The point is, you never stop trying, right? If you get told no, you go again. You go again. If it's something you want, you go again until you say, I feel like I'm giving life lessons as well as open source lessons. But yeah, you go again till you get it. You don't give up because somebody told you no. If no, you're not going to make it. If you don't want to go back there, go somewhere else. Just get, as long as you get what you want, right? So you don't register for an open source project. You don't register in an open source project. You find the project that you want. You go to their website, you contribute, and you do what's necessary for you to start contributing. Yes, open source is just a space for volunteering. Basically, like it's just, oh, you come to a marketplace, there are different projects or there are different stores, right? Where are you buying from? So you walk to a store, you find what you need. If you don't find what you need there, you go to another store. That's basically what the open source space looks like. It's just a marketplace with different projects that are serving humanity and they are doing it for free. So if you have that passion, right, you want to build stuff. Sometimes it's not even about passion or you want to build stuff for the world. You just want to learn for yourself. You just need a space for you to upscale. You need a space for you to gather real life experience. Open source is the place. Open source is the place. And the sweetest thing about it is there are a lot of conferences that happen around the world, and you get to travel for these conferences. You get to go places talking about the things that you do, talking about the people that you've met. People get to refer you, and some of these things are all expense paid. You just position yourself in a way where you get lucky. I would use the word lucky, but I know it's your hard work that will get you there. But like you just get lucky because you've been consistently putting stuff out there. People know you for what you are doing. I see a lot of application. How can I apply? How can I apply? So there are a lot of articles on the internet about getting started with open source, getting started in open source design. Like I said, our generation these days, we don't like to find stuff. But I would encourage you after this session, if you are really interested in open source, go online and type open source for beginners, open source design, open source. How can I get started as a designer in open source? How can I get started as a project manager in open source? How can I get started as a dev rel in open source? You would see a lot of things that you can contribute to, and that would help you build your skill as an open source contributor. And I know I mentioned GitHub. I also mentioned that not all the projects use GitHub. Some of them have GitHub account, but not all projects use GitHub. Some use GitLab, some use different open source tools. So get familiar with the community. And then when you get familiar with community, you will know the kind of tool that they use in that community. Yes, a cybersecurity analyst can get into open source. In fact, as a cybersecurity analyst, you are very needed in open source because one of the things that makes people not contribute to open source is the fear of security because it's free, so anybody can come in. So people get worried about their data being taken without their consent. People get worried about different things that happen to their project, right? So if you have an idea, if you're a data analyst, you're a data scientist, you're a business analyst, you work in security and tech, you are very much needed in open source projects. Your skills are needed in open source projects.
Okay. Thank you so much, Victory. You know, I called you different names. Sometimes I can call you Brown, sometimes I can call you Victory. So any which one. Thank you so much, Victory, for answering all our questions. And also, I believe you all have learned so much from today's Variety Friday. These are the things that we intend to do for Variety Fridays. We have compiled a lot of list of people that will be speaking on our different on different Fridays, right? So it will be very good for you to actually join all the Variety Fridays. So if you can see what you have learned so much, you know, the sweet thing about the open source stuff is that I first contributed to an open source platform when I was in school, but I didn't know that it was I didn't know, I didn't have understanding of it then. I think it's when it was being publicized, then that's when I picked interest in it. We all know, who knows Moodle.org. Moodle.org is an open source virtual learning platform. right? So that was the first platform I contributed. I changed some of their code base. They were using PHP then, right? So I changed some of the code. We were using it in school, so there was some malfunctioning stuff. So I started researching and researching, and I found out their open source project, right? So I now made some changes and I pushed, and luckily for me, it was accepted and it was merged, right? So they now publicized it, gave me some, but I didn't. I even lost my Gmail account, that account I use in doing all of those things. So because I didn't have idea of what I was doing, right? It was not, I didn't know about the open source community and all of that. It was later, I started getting understanding and all. We even tried to build an open source platform. That was 2020 during pandemic as well. If you can check this, I think for us to actually have our hands dirty on open source, while you are also at sourcing, looking at for different platform you can contribute to, we can revive these applications. The application we are trying to build as an open source. You can see the link on the Q&A. You can check it out. It was accepted on Open Collective. Before Open Collective will accept your application, you must. So it was accepted on Open Collective. We even got some free stuff from different platforms. We have GitHub free version. Like as an open source organization, once you have it's been licensed on it has what's it called, an open source license as well. So we have some. You can apply for some of these free stuffs, like even for websites. You can host your open source application. If you see some what is it called, hosting platform, you can apply and they will give you free license to host your website. Different things that you can get, like Gitbook. Gitbook is a paid platform, but we have it as we have a free version because of Roadman, right? So Roadman was in 2020. We started Roadman. It was just an idea that came, right? I was just thinking, and I conceived this idea, creating a map, right? If you go on this link, you can read through what's there, right? So I don't want to talk much about it, but it was just an idea I conceived, and I said, no, I want to build this as an open source. So I formed a team and we started the process. We even built our GitHub repo has some application like the UI and some of the things that we have already built. Those are the things we use to actually get approval from Open Collective and some of this platform. So since we are here, right, we can revive this and we can get our hands dirty by building this whole thing again. And trust me, it will be a way to understand how open source work from our end. So we can just have a group, open source group, put the application, then with different teams start building on it. So I believe we have learned so much here. These are the reasons why we bring all of this, because like I said, we want us to go fast. We don't want to train students that will not be exposed to some of these things that can actually put you out fast and put you out there. We know when it comes to the open source community, we have seen so many persons that have gone up the ranks like very fast. It puts you out as long as you are committed, right? Like she said, rightly said, some persons feel like open source is free, and we have that notion as Nigerians, right? We want to be paid for everything. It's good because of the harsh economy and all of that. We want to be paid for every little things that even for this training itself, some persons are still asking for, are they going to be paid? Are there stipends and all? So you see, even learning, we want to be paid to learn. So that's the nature, that's the way we find ourselves. Everything we want to be paid. But trust me, doing some free stuffs can put you out faster. I mean, doing free stuffs like this, it can enable you to build your portfolio and get connections. Like because of Roadman and Figma, right? I know lots of people I can bring on what's it called, on CareerEX to speak to us, right? Different people from I can bring as far as Figma product managers, different people to speak because of what? The connections. These things are the things that puts me there. There's no way I would have gotten those connections to know all of these people, right? But because of open source, free stuffs that we are doing, we are getting the connections, meeting people that can help us at any point, right? Even as what's her name? Victory that is speaking today. It is true communities that we met, right? And today she's speaking. I can easily reach out to her, see, come and speak to my students. So it's easier to go faster and to know people, get connections through open source platforms like this and communities. So she has made it clear. Most times we like to be fed by, oh, show me the way, show me, but it's easy. You have now learned about open source. It's for you to do your research about open source based on your track, right? You're a product manager. There are open source platforms that need product managers, right? They are before now, we even think that open source is mainly for code. Like myself, I'm a programmer. I have learned almost all the skills. I know how to code, know so many product design, product management, and all. These are where we have touched different things, right? So before, we think open source was just for programmers, but it's far from that. Open source is for everybody. Like when you go to some applications that you are contributing to, some persons they just come and make logo, right? They just do flyer, they just make color change, right? It's contribution. They will merge it and they will use it, right? So open source is actually for everybody. You can be for cybersecurity personnel. It can be for you to go and test the application, right? Do pen testing for an open source application, document it, and send to them that these are the threats that you found on this application. They will accept it. They will bring you on board. Then you start testing the applications. For data guys, you check an open source application. You do. It's one thing. We also bring somebody to talk about data-driven designs, right? So for data guys, you can check on different platforms, check how they can use data to actually enhance their designs and all of that. So there are so many things that the open source is cut across all the field. Is before we don't know this thing, but at least now we have better understanding and all of that. So that's why we are bringing these speakers to come speak to us. We are going to be learning so many things. We don't want you to feel the way we feel. When we started, it took us longer period before we get to where we are right now. And because of this experience, we don't want any of our students that we are training to go through that long route. Actually, you can be there are some persons, I don't want to mention them. I know Victory might know some of these persons. There are people that we know, they joined the tech community, right? In less than 2 years, right? They're already everywhere because they find themselves in open source. We were doing it the hard way, hard guys. But then they went through open source and today they are everywhere. So many of them, the friends that she's talking about, at least I know some of these people, right? It's just the open source just pushed them and put them at the global scene very fast, and it's awesome. So when we saw this part, we don't want our students to go through the parts we went through. We want them to see a soft landing. You are looking for money, right? Then do the free work. You call it free work, but for me, I call it exposure and networking. It's not free. I think anytime we are speaking on open source, let's cancel that free stuff. There's no free stuff in open source. It's actually exposure and connection. So take that and run with it. That open source is not free work. It's actually connection and exposure. It will help you to go faster. There's no free work anywhere. For me, my first ever job as a person, after learning my software, is actually free. I did my internship for free, right? But that internship is what actually built me on how company structures, how to work in an agile communities, agile environment, how to work in an organized. It's free work, as you call it, internship. But then I didn't learn there was nothing else I learned there than management and how to set up structures and all of that as an intern. So that was what puts me and sets the pace for me to even start up my own company, understanding how structures work, understanding how people relate in a workspace and all. But if I have not taken that job, maybe I'm looking for, like my other colleagues and my classmates in schools, we were looking for the IBM. Some of them, they work in Google, IBM and all of that because the opportunities were there based on where we study, right? But me, I chose to work for to do a free internship. And this is where it has landed us, right? So please, we're encouraging every one of you, don't see it as free. When you see voluntary works out there, do it. You are building your CVs, right? You are building your CVs. When you show people your CVs that you have worked in XYZ place, she's working as in WHO because of something she did as an open source back in 2020. This is where it has landed us. So we are encouraging every one of us here that we'll keep doing this. We'll keep bringing different speakers to our platform to speak to our students by the grace of God, it is these same connections that have made me know all of these people. I know how much it will take me if we want to start paying all of these people. It's a lot, but it's because of connection, it's because of relationship. They are answering our call. Some of them, if it was not this connection, most of them maybe wouldn't have been talking to them or would be looking for their numbers to call. But because of this connection, communities and all, we met them, right? From different organizations, we met them and we can easily reach out to them. So please, we're encouraging you, when you find a communities like that, join them and build your portfolio, build your network. If you don't get paid, you will get networking. If you don't get paid, you will get exposure. So don't just rely on the money alone, right? So thank you so much, Victory. I don't know if you have any the last comment you want to drop for to our student before you leave.
I don't know. I feel like you just summarized everything, and I like how you said, "Don't get confused by the free." The free is not even for the contributors. The free is for the users. Is like, users, you can get this for free, right? So don't. I know our economy is hard. Honestly, like, I know we're all experiencing it together, but I want your driving force to be the fact that you want to learn, you want to impact, and you want to grow. Those should be your driving force before you think of money. All of those, it's like, I don't know if they're like non-believers here, but it's like when the Bible says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything will be added unto you." This is one of those experiences where seek personal development and every other thing will be added. So that's like my final word for all of us. So seek your personal development, everything will be added to you. Money, travel, every other thing that you want. So yeah.
And I don't know why you didn't tell them about your you would have I think sometimes those who have traveled to this place who have spoke like you would have mentioned roots, give them root experience, give them the likes. I think those things would
I'm
have
sure
been
they'll see it. I'm sure
no,
you
I
don't.
don't.
When you say those things, it doesn't sound like you're bragging, but bro, like, I
It's
don't
not
know.
brand.
I don't want to be vulnerable on this call, but I was like this from looking for house rent to like this in the space of 2 months. What I mean in space of 2 months, like, I was looking for my rent. I was arguing with my caretaker about adding 50,000 on top of my rent. That was 200,000 to renting an apartment that is times 10 that amount. So it was because all of the times when I was working and contributing, I just knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And why? Because I had seen people put in the work and it had worked for them. Like, I had people that I was observing. Me, I don't do direct mentorship. Like, I don't have anybody that I call and I say, "Mentor me, let's jump on a call." But I see people online and I just observe and I take notes and then I work the way that they are working. Right? Like, people who are out there hitting goals. One of those people, Adora. Adora is one of my hugest like, sometimes I just wake up in the morning. Anytime I feel like I don't want to do work, I go to her page. As I see things, I'm opening my laptop immediately. That's like an indirect mentorship. That consistency, that drive, that's what I am after. That personal development. Don't stop learning. Yes, you finish the boot camp. After the boot camp, what's next for you? Don't wait and go to another boot camp. Find out those aspects. So let me tell you a secret on how, like, when I was applying for jobs, what I was doing. So I'll go to LinkedIn. I will type out the role that I want. I'll look at the requirements. They say, "Oh, you should be good with user testing. You should know how to do hierarchy. You should know how to manage this." I will check, which of these things do I know how to do. If I know 2 out of 5, I will look for resources, look for articles, look for videos on those or those other ones I don't know. I would try to do a self project that highlights that particular skill. I will do it. I'll write an article about it. I'll post it. I'll post the screenshot on Twitter. And that's how I started. It's now that I don't even do anything again because at this point I feel like everybody knows what I do. So I don't even talk. I'm posting rubbish on my Twitter. But I'm about to change that because I want to transition. Now I'm doing another transition again. In the space of 4 years, I've moved from writing code to doing UI design, to doing UX design, to doing project management, community management in 4 years. And I've worked in each of these roles in open source. I've gotten paid for each of these roles in open source. I have gone to talk about 3 of these roles together as one in conferences all over that I have traveled to. So do not look at this. It depends on you. Honestly, is you. If this is something you want, I believe that you would go the extra mile. The difference between you and an extraordinary person is the extra work that they put in. There's no special powers. It's that extra work that extra time, that time that you say, okay, let me watch Bridgerton. That person say, no, Bridgerton can wait for another 1 hour. Let me finish this task. That minute is what makes the difference. So yeah. My socials are open. If you have questions, you can ask. I will not promise you that I have time to mentor, but I can answer your question. Thank you.
That's on that way of telling you that I'm not ready, but just try your luck. All right, so yeah, so you guys have heard. Anyways, I think she's trying to be kind of, you're trying to keep out to put the humble feet out there. But if I want to blow it, I can blow it because you're not the one talking, I'm the one talking, right? So these people are actually people that we know from, and all of a sudden, at least we can attest. I can attest to some of them, like most of the likes of Perry. They have done so well in the open source community, and you even saw them. We saw them when they started, right? But because they do, I mean, what's her name? Victory. They don't want to talk, but then she has traveled to speak in different countries like that, speaking about open source and all. We have Ruth. They are doing well. Ruth was supposed to speak for us. The last time when I said we were supposed to do open source, right? Ruth was supposed to speak, but she was in Canada, right? That exact day. So it was not easy for her. So we canceled the meeting, right? So these are people that are doing extremely well when it comes to the tech industry and all. Well, in fact, open source per se. So they started, and this is where they are: commitment, dedication, and all. So it's not a rocket science, and it's not just something that you do once and you get there. It's consistency. How long do you? Some persons, they just want to finish 3 months and they get job. If they don't get job, they take another boot camp instead of finishing one and start applying this knowledge by looking for internship role. If you want to be in the circle of learning, you will learn and learn, and you will not stop learning. That's just the issue. You finish career Youth Thrive program, you jump on 3MT program, you jump on another. All of these things will not help you. It will not help your learning curve. I bet you. I'm telling you from experience, and I'm telling you from what we know. Jumping from one training to another, it will only build. Do you want to show employer that I've taken boot camp for a year, I'm taking this? We are not looking at what you have learned. We're looking at your experience. We're looking at the jobs you have done. It's not how many places you have learned this skill. That's why for organization and companies, tech companies, they are not concerned about your certificates. So many persons ask about certificates. Are you going to give us certificates? Trust me, we have not employed the first person. I will not employ the next 10 years with certificates. Because you have certificate, that's why we're employing you. Okay, can you build? Yes. Open your laptop. We give you a line of code. Can you run this thing? This is what we are looking for. This is exactly what we are looking for. Nobody cares about certificates, right? In Google, if you check the statistics, go online, check statistics of people with certificates working in Google, then you will understand that certificate is not the key. It is actually your experience that matters. So if you have learned, practice what you have learned. Leave jumping from one training to another. It will not help you. You will only be in a loop, going from one training, you will not understand anything, in fact. So practice what you have learned. Right now, you are finishing this course. That's why CareerEX, we are building. We say that after the 3 months, we are taking 200 students out of each cohort. We are putting them in a project-based group, where they will be working together, building projects, so that they can have hands-on experience at the end of the day. Because we have learned so much in this industry that we don't want people that we train to go through that experience again. So if you are good and you do very well in your track, in your program, in the 3 months, know that you will be part of the 200 people that will be selected to actually build real-life projects. When I mean real-life projects, build projects that will be launched online. So put in your effort, put in your best foot out there, and ensure that this 3 months is not wasted. Because it is very easy for you to go through a program, and at the end of the day, you will tell people that you were part of this program, but you have nothing to show for it. So we don't want that experience anymore. That's why we're bringing these experienced people to come and talk to us. next week again, we have someone in line already that we are going to be bringing on our Variety Friday. If you miss our Variety Friday going forward, trust me, you will miss a whole lot of real life experience. Training is one. Training is just you learning what you need to do. But what we do on Variety Fridays is real life experience, bringing people that have industry experience to teach on what you need to know in the industry. So please, in anything you do, do not miss Variety Friday. Tell your other colleagues and your classmates that they should be part of Variety Friday. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we can call it a day right now. Victory, I really want to appreciate you for answering the call, even in your busy schedule. I know that you guys are always busy, but then you answer my call, you are available, and I believe that we can also extend this this hand to each other at when needed. Thank you so much. Really appreciate, and God bless you as well. All right. Thank you all for being a part of the Variety Friday. Looking forward to see you again next week. We believe that we have actually answered all your questions at this point, all the questions that you've raised online. Like I said, we are looking at doing open source internally. We have a platform that I started 2020, Roadman. I will revive this. I will see if we can give it out to students to actually build the software, right? Contributing your time and all. It has been approved in Open Collective. Open Collective is not a small place. It's a place we can actually request for fund if we have something that is working for Roadman. It's something that would have built long ago, but then some engagements could not allow us to continue the project. So we are looking at reviving this again. I think I've dropped the link. Maybe I'll drop it on the channel so that we can go through it on the cohort 1 and cohort 2, so that we can go through it. It has been there, and we are looking at still reviving this platform. So thank you so much all. Have a wonderful, we are going to be putting out this video online. So in case you want to re-watch it, we'll put it on our YouTube channel, just in case you need to go back to it again and again, right? So thank you. Have a wonderful night rest. See you in your class tomorrow. Remember, your class for cohort 1, your class still remains by 3. For cohort 2, we are hoping to start with you on the 1st of July, but from on Monday, we are putting out introductory resources out there for you guys to go through, so that before you start your program, you already have first-hand experience of what you are doing. So we are going to be adding every cohort 2 students to your Google Classroom. When you join your Google Classroom, you're going to be seeing introductory courses to your track that you have chosen. So you go through it, and it will be graded as well. Thank you. Have a wonderful night rest. See you again next week, Friday. Good night.